put chocolates in there today. Breakfast. Yeah. Breakfast. Exactly. That's what life.
And this is the quietest cyber room that's ever been, right?
Crazy morning.
All good. Everybody's ready. Yeah, Rob.
It's 9. Oh, we're good.
Well, good morning. I thought Tamara already started. Our vice chairman with us. Good morning. Let's go ahead and bring the meeting adjourned to April 11th for the TDC meeting. Good morning. Welcome. This time we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please. Here.
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 Here. Here. Here.
Great, thank you. Next, we did a presentation of the guest first participants are the American Hotel and Lodging Education Certificate for Service Professionals.
Good morning. I'd like to again thank the community for their continued support in our Guest First program. We're going to present today our recent graduates of our winter program that we just kicked off. And again, without this partnership through the American Hotel Lodging Education Institute, we would not be able to be one of the friendliest destinations in the world, is what we're striving to be. And as we recognize today's graduates, we are now currently up to 763 certified guest service professionals in our destination. And the Guest First program today will actually be honoring our first group. We have exclusively now put the Guest First training program on site at our RSW airport. So today we will be congratulating our first group of recipients from that, and we will be kicking off again in June, and the schedule will come out in May, and we'll also be back at the airport in April. So as I call your name, please come up and get recognized. You'll shake the hands and you'll receive your certificates and your pen. And we have listed all the names, but unfortunately not everyone could make it. So we're going to start out with the Lee County Parks and Recreation. We have Raina Gerhardinger. And then from the Lee County Port Authority, we have Brian Boardman, Mike Brown, Jennifer Cochran, Mike Culver, Danny Donovan, thank you. Pia Godden. Lisa Mendoza. Kathy Murray. Scott Sims. Leslie Yernikas. Rich Van Bodigan. From Lee County Solid Waste, we have Megan Frick and Jennifer Pierre. From the Lee County Visitor Convention Bureau. From the Lee County Visitor Convention Bureau, we have Mark and Marianne Dahl. From Lovers Key State Park, we have Matthew Cruz. And from Shangri-La Springs, we have Monica Cubillos. At this time, is there anyone else here to be recognized that I did not call? All right, well, thank you again, congratulations, and this concludes our presentation.
Congratulations to all the participants and everybody involved. And I can tell you as a consumer from staying in a hotel, I stayed one last week in Orlando, and that training of those employees really come in handy because you could tell when they've been trained and haven't been trained. You know, my first experience walking the counter and they tell me that my reservations weren't correct after they've already been booked. You know, the way they handle it, you can tell who's been trained and who's not. So that once in contact with your visitors makes a big difference. So thank you for putting the employees through that. Okay, could I get approval of the March 15, 2019 TDC minute?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion, any changes, any discussions about the minutes? No? Okay, we'll come back. Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you. This time we'll have public to be heard. Any public at this time to be heard? One for the public? Okay. Municipalities to be heard. Judy, come on up. Judy.
Not Judy.
No Judy?
Good morning, everyone. Michelle Dean with the City of Cape Coral Parks and Recreation Department, and I was with you last month with my associate Kristen, and you were telling me about all of these great events going on in Cape Coral, and forgot to tell you about one of Cape Coral's coolest attractions. Sunsplash Family Water Park is reopened. Yay! All right, so I put a rack card on each of your places. We opened in the middle of March, and we'll be open, we're weekends only right now. We'll be open for the long weekend, Easter weekend, and then are open daily starting May 31st through August 9th. Something that you may or may not have heard about, City Council approved alcohol sales for 1 year period. It's a trial period this year. Beer, wine, and wine slushies. It's in a controlled environment, maximum of 2 per person. So far, sales this year overall for Sunsplash have almost doubled compared to last year at this time. So people like their wine slushies, or maybe that's an indication. But we're expecting a really great season. Would love for you all to come out to the park if you haven't been in a while, and just wanted to remind you that we're here, and obviously that that initiative creates some new opportunities for group outings and things like that. So we're really excited and hope that it goes well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Oh, the last bike night, Cape Bike Night, is this Saturday, 47th Terrace from 5 to 10. Thanks.
Great, thank you for the great news. Any other municipalities at this time? No other? We will close that item. We'll report the Executive Director, Cameron Pikett. Hope he's got some good news for us.
Yes, I do have good news for you. I am so excited to tell you that our February bed tax collections are the largest February collections in our history, up 1.3%. And I hope this is a sign we have turned the corner on some of the challenges we have faced the last year, for sure. For the year to date, of course, we are down 3.4%, reminding you that those October, November, December, we benefited pretty significantly from those cruise and adjuster stays last fiscal year. So that definitely is reflected. That first quarter, we faced some challenges. Second quarter is better. The STAR report, however, does show some softness. Occupancy down 2.4%, ADR up down 1.4%, and RevPAR down 3.7%. And, you know, that's a little bit of a dichotomy. How can that be down and bed tax revenue be up? But remember, the STAR numbers reflect about 80% of our hotel rooms, not 100%, and also does not include vacation rentals. So I think it's important to remember that as you look at that report. Passenger traffic at RSW for the month of February up 6%, and for the January-February timeframe combined, an increase of 7.3%. So we're definitely getting good traffic through RSW. Because I know everybody's a little bit anxious about how summer's going to go and pacing, I hear from some of my colleagues, I thought I would give you a little taste of some of our summer campaign that has kicked off. So, you know, we work ahead. You know, people book their vacations out. So we just this week launched TV commercials in some key out-of-state markets. Boston, Charlotte, Chicago, Cleveland, Denver, Grand Rapids, Hartford, Kansas City, Minneapolis, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Washington, D.C. And we'll run 2 flights of those commercials, concluding about mid-May in the out-of-state markets. And then in mid-May, we will begin the summer in-state broadcast of these same commercials. And in addition to Miami, Orlando, and Tampa this year, during that mid-May through mid-June, 2 flights have run. We're going to add Atlanta into that mix. You know, Atlanta is a very easy trip to our area. Lots and lots of direct flights out of Atlanta to Fort Myers, so we're going to add them into our in-state market timing. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the 2 newest commercials which have been shot in the last few weeks. We talked about this last month, and I will remind you, we're taking a little bit of a humorous approach to our summer campaign. You can't choose your family, but you can choose your family vacation. So let's run.
You can't choose your family, but you can choose your family vacation. Bring them together on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel.
I think it's different.
Yeah, a little bit different.
People remember that one.
With you, just take my hand and fly up through the dreams.
You can't choose your family,
With you,
but you can choose your family vacation.
I wanna stay with you.
Bring them together on the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel.
So I think they've got really good flavor. I hope you enjoy them. I also love that we were able to capture both icons in those commercials. We've got the Fort Myers Beach Pier and the Sanibel Lighthouse. That's not some other beach destination in Florida. That is the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel. In addition, just a quick share with you of the first summer insert. We just completed this creative, and the summer inserts
go into the newspapers, the Miami Herald, the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel, the Orlando Sentinel, the Tampa Bay Times, and the Villages Sun. We have a drop that happens on May 12th. That's this creative. There will be a second set of creative that will drop in June, but this is the cover and back page of that, and then the inside, and of course, as you know, we co-op the summer insert, so you see the co-op partners listed there as well. So I just, a friendly reminder that we are in our heavy marketing period. This is the time when the bulk of our budget gets spent. We know this is the need period for our hotel partners and our community attractions, restaurants, and businesses, so that is going on. Brian told you about all the other stuff. I will add that there is summer radio that begins on June 3rd in Miami, Orlando, and Tampa, and a lot of other digital placements, and he will give you a full update on how everything is going at our June meeting. But I want to say that it's over 100 million impressions that we're looking at with this summer campaign. So really strong campaign for you, and I hope that that means that pacing will be picking up quickly. With that, I'm going to shift into our sales report and ask Jill to present. Jill and Stephanie will give you a sales report. Jill first.
Good morning, Council. I'm Jill Vance, Director of Sales, and I'll be going over our sales activities. Here's a recap of the first 6 months of this fiscal year sales goals, and as you can see, we are ahead of pace on the following goals. The number of room nights from the RFPs that we've sent our hotel partners. Also, we're ahead on the room nights booked by the hotel partners from those leads. We are ahead of pace on the amount of travel professionals we have hosted through our FAMs and site tours. And we are ahead of pace on the number of client events we've held. However, as you can see, the last goal, we are slightly behind pace on our number of wedding leads sent, but we are still 12 leads ahead of the same time last year. And we've made up a lot of ground since last quarter with all the engagements that occurred over the holidays, in addition to our marketing team's efforts with their wedding campaign through print, digital, and social activations. VCB on the road. Here are some of our group sales team's activities for last quarter, and just to mention a few, Candace attended the RCMA Emerge Conference, and there were 450 faith-based meeting professionals in attendance. Candace has already sent 8 leads as a direct result of this show, and that also encompasses over 11,000 room nights to our hotel partners. Also, Jerry attended the Conference Direct Annual Partners Meeting. He attended the 3-day reverse trade show along with one of our hotel partners. And for those of you who don't know, Conference Direct is a third party with about 325 meeting planners. Jerry wound up sending 14 leads as a direct result of last year's show, and we're looking forward to the final results for this year. Also, the last show I'd like to point out is the Excite Tallahassee Trade Show. This was an appointment-based, hosted by our show, and it attracted over 40 high-level meeting planners from all market segments. It was a new show for us, and Aaron has already sent 5 leads to our hotel partners, and 3 of those leads have already gone to contract. Here are some of the highlights from our consumer and travel agent team's activities. And the first photo is Shelley, Jennifer, and 2 of our hotel partners at the Boston Globe Travel Show. There were over 17,000 consumers in attendance despite the snowy weather. And we also attended the New York Times Travel Show. We were in the Visit Florida booth along with 2 of our hotel partners. And this consumer show attracted over 23,000 travel-focused consumers. Next are the upcoming activities for the domestic sales team. And just to point out a few for April, even as we speak, Jerry is attending the Global Meetings and Incentive Travel Exchange along with one of our hotel partners. This is the 3rd year we've attended this show, and about 3,500 corporate meeting incentive planners attend. And as you know, our tropical destination is a perfect fit for the incentive market, which involves companies looking to reward their top producers with a special trip. Also, Jen is currently conducting the West Coast Florida Travel Agent Sales Mission. And she's with 5 of our industry partners, and they have formed 3 teams. They are making sales calls on travel agencies and AAA offices from Venice as far north as Spring Hill on the west coast of Florida. And we're hoping to reach about 60 travel agencies. And the last show I'd like to bring to your attention is Your Military Reunion Connection Show. This is another new show for us. It is an appointment-based reverse trade show, and it's got pre-qualified military planners along with a multitude of networking opportunities. For May, just to highlight a couple, Shelley will be training Allegiant reservation agents in Las Vegas. We will be conducting presentations to about 75 reservation agents, and several of our hotel partners who participate in the Allegiant Hotel program will also be joining us. Also, Betsy will be attending the Connect New York City trade show. We chose this show. It is a new show for us, and we chose this show because we've had great results from other Connect shows, so we're really looking forward to attending this. And finally, for June, Shelley will be attending the CCRA Power Solutions Live event, also in New York City. It is a travel agent trade show, and it's supplemented with roundtable sessions. This new show gives us the opportunity to get in front of a great mix of New York City travel agents who book both leisure and business travelers. Are there any questions before I turn it over to Stephanie Zinka, who will update you on our international activities? Okay.
Thank you, Jill. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning. Good morning, Council. Stephanie Zink, International Sales, and as Jill mentioned, I will give you a brief recap of what we've done in the past months. Back in January, we started the year attending Florida Huddle in Daytona, which we met with 400, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Sorry, 40 international tour operators, receptive tour operators, and online travel agency. This show at the beginning of the year gives us the opportunity to review the previous year, see how we are performing, and the outlook for the coming booking season. With January being the beginning of the prime booking season for our European markets, we focused overseas on consumer events. Our team covered Scandinavia, Germany, and Switzerland. Meanwhile, in Canada, we participated with Visit Florida in the Moments of Sunshine activation in Toronto. And you'll see some pictures here go pass through behind me. During this event, we temporarily rebranded the Toronto subway line 1 as the Sunshine Line, with Lee County taking over the St. Andrews Station with 8 large murals, as well as the digital walls that you see here, giving us a total of 1.9 million impressions. At the same time, at Union Station, which is the main station, we distributed thousands of shell necklaces to Torontonians and shared Florida Sunshine through manatee holograms, digital video walls, red pillars, and a weather network broadcast, a total of 3.79 million impressions. And on top of all of this, we did a media reception in partnership with Visit Florida, which brought us collectively 19.8 million impressions. So that was all pretty much in one day, which was very, very successful activation in Canada. In February, I attended Roots Americas together with the Port Authority team, where we met with domestic and international airlines to discuss potential air service development and co-pitch both RSW and the destination. Later in the months, we went to Connect Marketplace, where we met with over 40 buyers from 6 different countries, including, but not only, China, Argentina, and Denmark. In London, our UK team hosted a Ginspiration workshop for 25 top partners to focus on attractions that are bookable in the area and creating sample itineraries for the trade professionals to share, while linking everything back to Edison, since it was in February, and the inspiration he found in Fort Myers. In March, we started March with one of the biggest trade shows that we attend, ITB in Berlin, and this year we were lucky to have Commissioner Pendergrass attend with us. We conducted radio interviews, we did a travel TV program featuring the destination, as well as live reporting from ITB, as well as over 50 appointments. During ITB, the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel co-sponsored the classic Florida night together with the Collier County CVB for 200+ travel, trade professionals, and media. At the end of March, we started our very first West Coast Florida partner sales mission to Latin America. Back in November, we started a coalition of Florida DMOs, including Tampa, Pinellas, Lee, and Collier, in order to leverage our budgets for the Latin American market and also to promote a new regional Florida product to this specific audience, aiming collectively to steer them away from Miami and Orlando. We met with tour operators, both product and marketing managers. We did in-house trainings with key operators, training an average of 80 people per day. We covered 3 cities in just 1 week. We partnered with Copa Airlines in 2 of those cities to host breakfast workshops for 200+ travel agents specifically that work for Copa Airlines. Why? Because they fly into Tampa Airport, and that way we can promote not only the flight, but also the tourism and hotel product along the entire West Coast. Up next in April, yet already behind us, is WTM Sao Paulo, the largest travel trade show in Latin America. We were part of the Visit Florida media reception, hosted 25+ travel writers and influencers, and we conducted meetings with tour operators together with our hotel partner in attendance. Our Canada team last week attended the annual Travel Brands Agent event, reaching a total of 800 travel agents in just 3 days. In May, coming up, we are conducting our Partner Canada Roadshow again, covering Toronto and Montreal this time, with 2 of our industry partners joining us, focusing this time on in-house trainings, travel agent engagement, and then we're going to wrap it up with a trade and media event introducing the brewery and culinary scene with tastes and highlights from Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel to Cape Coral and Pine Island. More of that to share with you at the next meeting. And in June, we will be marked by IPW, the International Powwow, which is USTA's largest inbound travel show, held in Anaheim this year. We will have our international contractors from Germany, Canada, and UK with us to meet with over 100 trade and media to discuss future partnerships, strategies, and overall performance. With us in our destination booth, we will have 5 of our hotel partners this year. And unless there are any questions, this would conclude my part. Thank you very much, and I'll pass it over to Judy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Judy Duran, Director of Visitor Services. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. A couple of things I'd like to highlight for you on this slide are notice that our visitor outreach numbers for the last 3 months is a little over 88,000 visitors. That's a 3.9% increase over last time, and we're very happy about that. Very, very busy at the airport right now. And in this bit of information, what I really want you to focus on is the fact that the biggest thing that we're seeing right now are people are asking about wildlife, what they can do for birds, where they can see all kinds of marine mammals. Dolphins, manatees are a big hit. So I'm not sure what's happening with the slide, but we're going to go
looked perfect
forward.
last night, didn't it, when we did this?
It was perfect last night, so I'm not sure. So let's
Perfect on
move
your
forward. How's
iPad.
this one? On this slide, just a couple of quick notes also. If you have not yet been to the Estero Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center, please make sure you stop by. It's wonderful. We took a stop out there, just enjoyed what they're doing. A lot of great things happening. On our roster of things to do is also to go visit the other Chamber of Commerce Visitor Centers too and report back on the great things that they're all doing. And of course, if you haven't been to any of the spring training games, what we do want you, we hope that you're aware that a lot of our volunteers, in fact nearly 3 dozen, supported every single spring training game. They were there, including the night games. Hugely popular, lots of questions asked about the area. Some of our outreach, including our destination training, included, of course, an incredible visit to Cape Coral. We spent half a day there touring not only the Cape Coral Historical Museum, but also the Cultural Park Theater. You see a picture down there. They did some great things with us. The art studio. Again, if you have not been out there or you have family or visitors coming in, please stop. It's really incredible. And just a really fun thing that popped up just recently, of course, was something you see at the bottom there that's called the United Airlines Special Greeting. United Airlines, their station manager, found out that they have a passenger who was literally flying out within an hour. They called us and said, we have a cake. This lady is turning 100. Can you put a team together to bring them over, to come over and sing happy birthday? Our volunteers were happy to do that. They actually sang happy birthday, and every passenger in the nearby concourses also sang. So that was really kind of cool. I mean, she was 100. She did not expect that. And of course, as far as our look ahead, the Lee County Travel Rally is coming up on May 1st. Hopefully you saw this in the news press, this wonderful advertisement for our tourism races. And of course, at your table, you're going to see a flyer. There's flyers here at the front. We hope you participate. Lots of fun things happening. And that's all I have, and I'll turn it over to communications. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Judy. Please welcome Francesca Donlin.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Before I start my presentation, I just want to put it into context. Last August, 2018, we were essentially at ground zero for our Red Tide event. Governor Rick Scott had declared a state of emergency for our county. We had moving into a Red Tide, the length of a Red Tide event that we hadn't seen in half a century. And that translated to us, because of the viral photos that we're generating about our impacted marine life, that generated 5 billion negative media impressions, which I think is actually also historic. So our task in the communications department was to help turn the red tide. Oh, how about that? Okay, so I wanted to share with you some of our strategies and how impactful they were. First of all, we did a satellite media tour. We'd never done this before. So I went down to Pink Shell. We invited this group that basically takes me and my talking points about Red Tide and sends it to over 300 broadcast airings. We paired it with a press release with our talking points, and that went to over 5 million journalists. I'll show you. So it went viral. Just like those terrible images went viral, our good news went viral. So it went to the AP, it went to Boston, Los Angeles, and it all went out in February, so just when we needed it to. These are some headlines. They went out simultaneously. The beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel are clear. Visitors return. Mother Nature is the best salesperson. So we were able to just quickly and effectively get our message out that the beaches were open and they were back to being beautiful. The difference, the trick about Red Tide, as you all know, is it isn't like a fire or it isn't like a hurricane. We didn't know when it was going to end exactly. The only person who knew was Mother Nature, and she was not returning my call. So we had to guess, in essence. We had to feel comfortable. We had to get our governing bodies to tell us that they're comfortable that Red Tide is over, and then we had to go. So we did that, and we just were able to flood the country with that message. We also, at the same time in February, went to the New York Times Travel Show, where Verdell with South Seas, Jonelle with Collier County, and I did a press conference there. Same talking points. Beaches are open. It's beautiful. Through the New York Times Travel Show and another international media marketplace that I attended, we touched about 100 journalists, critical journalists that we needed to send this message. So we did that, and I think it had a tremendous impact at a time we needed it the most. Recently, ta-da, we got Vineyard Vines here, which we're really excited about. So Vineyard Vines, if you don't know, is an incredibly preppy, sort of classic clothing company, and we just felt like this area was perfect fit for it. So we've been trying to develop this relationship. Everybody wants them, but then on a Thursday, something fell through, and they're like, can we come on a Monday? So we just scrambled, and they did, and as a result, the gift that keeps giving. They're on their emails. We've been on their Instagram, and we hope to continue a relationship with them. Jackie Parker from my team went to Travel Massive in Toronto. That's sort of a reception where you bring some of the best journalists in the region. It was really successful. We were trending in Toronto on the same day that the Blue Jays opened. So that just goes to show you, when you bring these really impactful journalists in one place and you can talk to them, that message gets out. Over 1 million impressions in one evening. So those events are critical to what we do. And then lastly, we had a lot of journalists here, and it's unusual. So we don't usually host journalists in season, and that's for our partners' sake, and plus it's not the best experience because it's crowded and there's lines, and we don't want to impact our partners. But anyway, we had to this time because once again we were just nailing that message. So we had a lot of journalists from some big names come here, like Forbes. We took them out literally we did what it says. We took them to, got them out on the water, and the dolphins showed up, and everybody was great. Family Traveler, then we took them to Baseballs and Brews, a whole nother group. Let's see, sorry, U.S. News and World Report, Forbes, oh boy, sorry about that. Photos, Taste, and when it looks like, when you see a screenshot like that, it looks like, oh, we took some journalists to get some beers and take them to baseball games. But the journalists that we pick know everything about beer, and they know a lot about our team. So we're very selective about who we pick to go on these FAMs because we want to get the best reach. And then, of course, we have our international media. We had a German influencer who was working with Steiff Toys, which is a very popular, prestigious toy company in Germany, and she has a little manatee. You can see it. And she brought her manatee around, and she got a lot of impressions for that. And then we had 2 journalists from China for the China Lonely Planet magazine, which has a huge circulation. And then we had our own Danish celebrity from X Factor. And so X Factor is really popular in Denmark. There's only like 5 million people in Denmark, and more than 1 million of them watch the X Factor. So her Instagram and her social feeds blew up, and she had a great time here. Lastly, I always love this page because our accolades it's the stuff that money can't buy. It's the reputation that we hold and that we bring. So, best girlfriend getaways, best Florida beaches, and I love that we're still the best after what we went through. We're still on these best beach lists. We're still best Gulf Coast beaches. So that's just a testament to the hard work that we're doing. And then in closing, I just want to say that, if you think about where we were 8 months ago, and Tam's news today about record-breaking Florida bed tax, it's just tremendous, and it's such a testament to what a special community we have and how hard we work for Lee County. Thank you.
Rob, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. We had hired a communications firm. I think they'd come down from Orlando. How did that work out? Has it worked out yet, or is it still kind of in process? Where we find ourselves?
No, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so how it's worked out is that they were tremendously helpful in getting us, getting our arms around Red Tide and the talking points and the sort of mental place we needed to be. So we have a whole strategy now for Red Tide and the talking points, so it was more analytical. Am I doing this right, Glenn?
I think that's great. I mean, the way I would add to that is we now have a real playbook. Not that we didn't have a strategy before, but now we have a pretty formalized plan for these kinds of things. And so going forward, I think Francesca and her team can just implement everything. We probably don't have to go that path again, but I think it was a nice experience for the team to get prepared.
So when I went to the New York Times and I had to do that press conference, I had this incredible talking points to use when I was there that we all agreed on, which is the tricky part, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Nancy McPhee is going to update us on their beach and shoreline efforts.
Good morning. Thank you. This is your annual update on the Beach and Shoreline Program. You heard a lot about beaches in several of the presentations, and we want to talk about taking care of those beaches. Just as a review, the program purpose is to provide funding for shoreline renourishment, restoration and erosion control, beach maintenance, emergency beach cleanup, beach park facility improvements, as well as beach channel, estuary, or lagoon improvements. 26.4% of the tourist tax collected in Lee County is allocated to this program. And this is where you spend it. There's 3 primary areas that applicants can request funding for. You've allocated, since fiscal year 2000, $133.9 million to this program. Almost half of it has gone to maintain the beaches that we have here in Lee County. 20% of it goes to capital improvement projects, and 25% of it, just about a quarter, is beach nourishment. So what I'd like to do, I have a little visitor here, is talk about those 3 areas and what's going on, what we've completed, what's coming up. Beach nourishment, many people don't realize how much work goes into a beach nourishment project. We have 6 critically eroded beaches in Lee County that are constantly being monitored, and we want to give kudos to our Lee County Natural Resources Division, Steve Boutel primarily, for the great job that they do. Since fiscal year 2000, you've allocated $34 million to beach nourishment in Lee County. Each year, you allocate $2.2 million that Steve uses for a variety of things. One of them is monitoring. Prior to a project and post-project, there needs to be monitoring per the permits that we get from the federal and state government. This slide shows us it's ongoing monitoring that every one of our beaches has to perform. Is the warmer colors show where sand is accumulating, very important to know as we're planning for an upcoming project, and the cooler colors just offshore are showing where we're losing sand. So the engineers take this into account when they're preparing for upcoming projects. Very technical, I know, but a very important part and part of what your funding is paying for. We are preparing to search for sand to renourish Lover's Key, and this is a chart that shows where we've exhausted sand sources. The orange boxes show, the orange boxes show where we're investigating new sand sources, and we want to have quality sand to make sure the project is cost-effective and successful. The pink areas are where we've exhausted the supply in that area. So by doing this sand search, which will take about 2 years, we'll know where to find good sand and keep Lover's Key nourished for many years to come. One of the upcoming projects is going to be on Boca Grande beginning this summer. This is going to be federally funded. A portion of it will be funded by the state. This is at 5th Street on Boca Grande near the Gasparilla Inn. And this is while Hurricane Michael was passing our coastline. So you can see there was very little beach left during a storm high tide event. So that's why it's important to get this project done. Looking south, we're going to partner. The county is going to cost share on top of that project I just mentioned so that we can get the southern end. You've funded that bathroom that's sticking up there in the middle of the island as well as the dune walkover, and this is a very critically eroded section of beach. Since it's part of the state park, the state will reimburse the county for whatever funding that we provide for this project. Maintenance. As I mentioned, maintenance is about half of what we spend on through this program, and this can pay for anything from the daily operation, staff, equipment, landscape maintenance, parking lot maintenance, and beach maintenance. And these are the municipalities that benefit from this funding. $65 million has been allocated since fiscal year 2000, and this year you've provided $7 million to all of these entities to do the work they need to keep our beaches looking fantastic and those visitors coming. Emergency beach cleanup is part of the maintenance line of this program. And while the TDC has allocated funding for emergency beach cleanup for 20 years, many years we don't need it. We don't use it. It goes back to reserves. Since fiscal year 98, you've only expended $877,000 on emergency beach cleanup. Last year was a unique year. The TDC funded $129,000 to the entities that are listed here to help them clean up their beach. That wasn't the total cost of the project. Rob, did you have a question?
Yeah, the surf rakes that we got.
Yep.
Does anybody know how effective are they with this red drift algae, or are they not?
So I believe you can use them. I don't know if anybody is here, but I don't know that we're actively using them for that. I think they were bought with the intent to use them for the dead fish and the accumulation.
Last month they did it down on Fort Myers Beach. They worked great.
They did.
For the red drift?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I was down there yesterday. It was clean. I actually went down to see if there was any, because you're seeing reports on the news of all this algae, which is seaweed, and there was nothing down there. So of course it's just the same repetitive negative pictures being used again and again. But I guess they're using something else. I was going to ask that question later, so thank you for bringing that up, Rob.
I think if the algae remains on the beach, then a decision will be made by the entity whether they're going to use them or not, and remove it. But in most cases, red drift washes back out. The total cost of the red tide beach cleanup last year was in excess of $2.6 million, which was paid for by DEP, the state of Florida. So very important to have those funds available in the event of an emergency. Another project that is worthwhile, and many of our coastal partners have implemented this, is interpretive signage. I believe that if we can educate our visitors to the beach on the importance of some of the ecosystem, the birding. In this case, at the top of the slide, you'll see some algae on the beach. This is the rack line. This is a very important thing that happens. It's important for the food chain. It's important to keep the beach intact. So in most cases, when it's late like this, the practice has not been to rake it. But by educating our visitors, the hope is that they will help us in maintaining and taking care of our beaches. So 6 interpretive panels were installed by the town of Fort Myers Beach last year. There are about 75 beach accesses in Lee County from Boca all the way down to Bonita. Not all of them have parking. Many of them are pedestrian access. This is a good example of the amenities that can appear at a beach access, from dune walkovers to boardwalks to the Moby mats that provide access to people that need it, to interpretive signage, rope and bollards that protect the dune, and of course dune plantings, which are very important to holding the beach intact. So it's just an example of the work that it takes to maintain a beach. Capital improvement projects, we have about 22 of them that are in what I would consider an active status, anywhere from design, permitting, or construction. Since fiscal year 2000, you've allocated $26.5 million. This year, you only allocated just under $1 million. And that's for things like restrooms at several of our beach parks, shade structures, kayak launches, dune walkovers, and paddlecraft launches. A project that was complete last year by the City of Cape Coral was the Serenity Vista Accessible Kayak Launch, a great project because prior to this project being installed, people would drag their kayaks up and down the bank of the shoreline, and that is not good as far as erosion goes. So this not only protects the shoreline, but provides people with a variety of different abilities, access to the water. Here you can see the woman on the right is putting her boat in very easily, doesn't have to lift it down the ramp, and then the gentleman on the left is accessing the ramp as he's done paddling, probably in Mount Pass or on the Clusah Blue Way. Another project that just completed is the Cayo Costa restroom project. I know that we sometimes chuckle at restroom projects, but with 75,000 people accessing Cayo Costa, a bridgeless island, and that doesn't count all the boaters that are arriving there on their own, it's important to have a place for them to go so that our beaches stay in great shape. So we're excited that this project is complete. So you earlier this week received access to view the request for fiscal year 1920. We received 23 project requests, and that amounts to $10.2 million. Only 2 of those projects were not eligible. So you have a little bit of review to do. I thank you in advance. I've provided a project list as well as the eligibility that Andrea has provided us from the County Attorney's Office. All of these documents are available at leevcb.com on the Beach and Shoreline page. The public can view them, and I will update you with status reports next week. So as you're reviewing them, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We look forward to seeing you if you can make it here on April 25th at 2 p.m. to discuss the projects and make recommendations for next year's funding. So if there's no questions, that's all I have.
I actually have one
question. Robert.
I haven't looked through the whole package yet, but on the south side of Boca Grande, there's a dune walkover where the historic lighthouse park is, and it looks it's the one that you'd see from Boca Grande Pass looking at Boca Grande. It looks almost like it's not together, like the land is washed out below it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that still the case there?
Yes.
And did anybody put anything, is that coming up in that beach and shoreline? Is there a request on that?
There is not. They need to fix the beach first, and that will happen this summer.
Okay.
So once the beach is fixed, then they'll reassess what work needs to be done on that walkover.
Excellent. You know how much beach they're going to be able to add there?
That would be a Steve question. I'm not sure they've determined that yet. Steve?
Yeah, Rob, I was out there last year, and it was, like you said, that walkway's all gone. It was gone 9 months ago, so there was nothing left. So like Steve said, probably like 120 feet, and I know the groups are out there looking to get that replaced. So
yeah, that's great. All right, thank you.
Okay. Bill was next, then Tony.
This might be more for Gwen. The renourishment projects, is the county leading that, or is it the municipalities that are handling it? Maybe Steve.
I was going to say, Steve, do you want to just come up and address?
It's kind of joint. It's the county, our natural resource staff's obviously working on it, but then it's also like the Boca Grande, some state funding and federal funding involved. So all the agencies are working together. Steve can fill.
I've just been hounding the town, and the communication that I'm getting back is like there's a major disconnect.
Yeah, when we look at our beach projects, each of them is unique, but in all cases, we're looking for partnerships on those. If you look at, for the closest example to Fort Myers Beach would be City of Bonita Springs, and Bonita Beach project is one that we initiated prior to their incorporation. Since they were incorporated, then it turned to a situation where they actually come and ask us, hey, can you help do this? We have an interlocal agreement where the county takes the lead on it. They cost share, but they pretty much defer to us to run that project. You can look at the other extreme would be up on Captiva. They've got a special district. They manage that themselves. They do still come to us for partnership, but in that case, a little bit of technical support, but mostly financial support, and they run it. So there's kind of all possibilities in between, but in all cases, we need that local buy-in because there's so much on the ground that without that to initiate and provide the foundation for that project, the chances of success are just complicated that much more beyond the technical side when you have to deal with all the real estate and just constructability issues.
Tony?
This is sort of Steve and Judy, as long as I got Judy here, sort of a personal thing, but as I look at my cottages at Castaways, we have some major erosion. And the question I have, I remember going back before the CEPD was formed on Captiva, many homeowners put a riprap in their front of their beaches ahead of the forming of the CEPD, which was later on covered by the sand. My question to you, again, it's kind of a personal thing, is if we wanted to do that in front of the Castaways cottages, how do we go about the permitting and getting it done in a very speedy way that conforms to what Sanibel wants us to do, what's also good with the feds that makes them happy, and then when beach renourishment does happen in that area when we dredge the pass or whatever, that, you know, that obviously gets covered up. I just kind of want to know the steps, Steve, to help me kind of push that along. And I know Judy probably is concerned, too, about the road there that's very close as well. Because I remember back in 83 or 4, was it, when the road washed out? I don't think there was any permits. They just started dumping rocks in front of my place, you know, to get the road done. So maybe you can give me a little explanation on that, the steps and how we might go about it.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, there was. Too much scary.
Yeah, the revetment that's at the road right now, first of all, was designed and permitted, but we have certainly a better knowledge and better tools to design that, and my understanding is the city's working with Coastal Engineering Company right now to take a look at that as far as structurally and sand placement, what would be an option to make sure that that roadway is protected. We have continued to coordinate with their natural resources staff so that if there's anything that we can do to be of assistance in that, we're happy to do that. As far as your question for your properties, federal permitting is probably not a big issue because you're going to be landward of where their typical jurisdiction is. We'll need state permits, which would be scrutinized pretty carefully. Based on the control line standards, they would have to be designed and engineered, but it is something that is still done in a couple places. Most recently, I can think of one that was up on Captiva. And it was built as a last line of defense and insurance policy. It's very far landward, it's deep, and it's buried by the dune then afterwards. And again, the state DEP permitting process is probably a significant effort. And then I'm not sure how Sanibel and their local codes would come into play as far as a structural approach like that. So that'd be something you'd have to coordinate with them.
Would that engineering be probably who the city would approve, the city of Sanibel would approve, I would guess, Judy? Taking up a little time here, but saves me a lot of steps.
Judy Zamama, City Manager of Sanibel, and to piggyback on everything Steve said, all is accurate. To bifurcate the issues, there's the current issue, and currently the City of Sanibel is obtaining a permit from the DEP using an engineering firm to do emergency mediation there. And as of yesterday morning, the escarpment we had a little bit of accretion on the depth of the escarpment, but the closest the pavement's been since that washout in the 80s, and as of yesterday morning, we were at about 13.6 feet from the edge of pavement to the water, so that's fair, to the escarpment, so that's very close. And as recently as in the last 2 weeks, we'd seen 2 additional feet of erosion. So the DP understands the emergency nature. We've been communicating with the county because, of course, Sandcap Road is a county road. So we wanted to be certain if the DP contacted them as the owners of that right-of-way, they would also know how important it is to expedite that. And Mr. Dargelet called me yesterday morning to just make sure that we're all doing everything possible to get the emergency repairs done as quickly as possible. So that's all being permitted and all seems to be going well. We've not received any negative feedback from the DP on that. Then on the specific question, if you have something to look at, what would be considered a last resort for individual properties, to contact us. We'll get a meeting scheduled with Natural Resources, and we'd start the process of Natural Resources, and Public Works would be involved as well.
Thanks, Judy.
Great.
Thank you, Steve.
Great, thank you. In light of time, instead of doing the next item, the presentation, I think we'll move along and take on the new business real quick, then go back to the presentation so we don't lose anybody later on. Everybody okay with that? So the new business, we have to change the scope of requests for the Vista Park Shoreline Improvement Project. We'll need a vote for that.
I think we have Carrie from Cape Coral.
Would you like to go ahead and, would you like to?
Carrie, you want to share with them?
I am Carrie Rennie, Parks Director for the City of Cape Coral. Pretty much the change of scope request is for Serena Vista Park, which is the western point next to the Spreader Canal. And our change of scope is, instead of putting a observation deck on the Beauce Canal right across from the neighborhood, we've decided to put it on the western side of the park, which is along the Spreader Canal. We don't have as many manatees as we used to have after the lock was destroyed and taken out. And we would like to make that change along the shoreline, which will also help prevent the erosion and provide nature experiences and wildlife viewing along that spreader and in that state preserve. So we think that'll be a positive thing for that park at this point in time.
Thank you. Any questions?
And you can see the orange, or the rustic orange, what we want to do on the bottom there and where we want to put it.
So just as a reminder, typically, when we get a request for a change in scope, if it's not too complicated, completely in line with the project, staff will consult with the county attorney's office and typically approve that. This is a little bit larger change in scope, so when we do kind of a major change to approach, we do ask for your support on that change in approach. As you'll see, Thomas, if you could go back one slide, we did consult with Andrea on this. And in terms of the request from the City of Cape Coral, it is the change in scope proposed for the boardwalk, shifting the boardwalk over. That is eligible for tourist tax funding, so no problem there. However, the city did in their memo to us indicate that they would like to utilize any remaining funds. I'm not sure there will be any remaining funds when I look at that budget and the amount of boardwalk you've got there, Carrie. But for the master plan, and the county attorney's office has indicated that is ineligible use of the tourist tax. So I think it would be important that the motion indicate that you're okay with the shift in the boardwalk, but no allocation for the master plan.
Rob?
So just in the picture, going back to the picture, to clarify, the red part, it would go from essentially a viewing platform that would be a raised platform to more of a boardwalk that runs the...
Right, it'll be above ground, so that we don't disturb any type of plant life, erosion. People right now are walking that, like a lot. Road eroding, and then we have to go back and replant. That will help to protect that.
Yeah, I think it will. And just to clarify, previously it was on the other side of the canal.
Where was it before? It was facing
You have a
houses.
picture of that slide?
I don't know that we have that picture.
You're thinking about the kayak.
It's on the Bose Canal, and you can't see this. You can't see it in this picture. It was kind of,
You look on page 136 in your, 135 in your packet. The park is kind of sticks out on a peninsula there, and it was on the opposite side.
Colleen, you had a question, then Tony? Hang on.
Is this going to increase the budget that we have for this program? It's just, or you're just shifting aid? It's just location, no change in number in dollars?
no change in dollars.
Is this the change of the project itself, just the location of it? Tony, you had a question?
I'm just curious, I mean, how close to the water will this walkway be? Would people be fishing off of this, or? Or no? I mean, would you allow that? I'm just asking the question.
They might. We have a lot of fishing, which is really nice along that spreader.
I'm just saying, kind of like a lateral pier.
Right, right. And people will fish off of it.
Okay, Rob?
I'd make the motion to accept the change of use of the funds.
Motion needs to have,
Second.
needs to tell you about the other part of the funding? Or is that
Both.
good?
You need to say both pieces, Rob.
Master plan is ineligible for funding.
Excluding the master plan.
Excluding the master plan.
Yes.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second. We have a second by Colleen. Any other questions, discussion, any objections? No objections, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. The next item is request to shift May TDC meeting to Friday, May 10th.
This allows the commissioner and Fran and Pam to participate in the Airport Special Advisory Committee meeting, which we have a conflict with on May 9th. So if it is acceptable to the board, we're asking to shift the meeting one day.
Any objections?
Need a motion?
Well, probably.
Yes.
Yes, we need a motion.
Yeah. I would move to accept the change of date to Friday, I think you said May 10th?
Yes.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Tony seconds that. Any other discussion? Any objections? Great, thank you. And I guess it's best, since the meeting date's already been put out there for public announcements, that, we vote on that. And so how does that work, like for committees and things like that? If you want to change meetings and committees and stuff, we do the same? Not just for committee meetings, just for regular meetings like that.
Excuse me? Quick question on that. I'm just looking at my dates. Is that the same day correctly as the Chrysalis Awards?
Actually, we moved the Chrysalis
Okay,
Award
I haven't
date.
been, okay. Thank you. I don't have that.
You announced that last month?
I wasn't at that meeting. I apologize.
No,
So
it's
just wanted to
okay.
clarify.
Yes. No, we did. We were very careful about that. That was my first reaction, is we're moving it into Chrysalis. I was like, nope, remember, we moved Chrysalis to June. So.
Okay, thank you. And I did not have that corrected yet. I apologize for the interruption.
Absolutely.
Were you going to say something about that? Okay. Did you have a question? This is about the committee meetings. We just do it just for the regular scheduled meetings, not for like committee meetings and stuff like that.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll go on to the presentation.
So you may remember that last month we were going to have Emmy Heiss from STAR here with us, and she in Denver, and she got, there was a lovely blizzard that hit Denver.
Red Rock.
Right before, she was very close to Red Rock. And she got hit and snowed in, so she couldn't join us. She's joining us now. I'm not sure if it's good news, bad news. I think they're having another snowstorm in Denver right now, so maybe Emmy gets to stay with us tonight instead of going home.
It's good your meeting is today and not on Friday, because I would not have been able to fly out this morning. So,
No reason for your neighbors to come here every year.
Yeah, my friends were jealous that I'm here. So
I know you guys enjoy this presentation. I know it is a lot of info. We will, of course, to the audience members, this will be posted on our website, so we're ready.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to come speak to you today. I am Emmy Heiss. I'm a senior consultant with STR in their consulting and analytics department. Today I'm going to go over the total U.S. overview, the entire state of Florida, as well as Lee County performance, and then I'm going to finish up the presentation with the 2019 U.S. forecast as well as the Lee County forecast, so you have it for comparison. So the total U.S. is primarily good news. We're in a really big upcycle. I am going to scatter in a few things of awareness just to keep an eye on, as like I said, we're in a very long expansion cycle now. So here are the results of 2018, still breaking records, peak occupancy, peak ADR, and therefore peak RevPAR. Now if we look to February and January, still positive occupancy, positive rates, so we're still beating those records, albeit it is a little bit slower than it has been previously. So for this chart, this is showing the supply percent change and demand percent change since 1990, which was the previous expansion cycle. So since 2010, you can see this green, or the blue line, has been positive demand growth. What I want you to focus on is towards the tail, and you see that demand is coming close to dropping below supply, which would indicate a drop in occupancy. This occurred in 2016. So at this point, we thought that perhaps occupancy had peaked, but then you see it creep back up in 2017. This is primarily a result of hurricanes, and now it's trending back down. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Still growth, still beating records, but just something to keep an eye on. Now we're looking at occupancy and ADR. So as you can see, no surprise, the blue line occupancy is at 0.4%, and that's no surprise because of the previous slide. The past 8 months have been less than 1% occupancy growth. Now, if we look at the red line, which is ADR, it's at 2.3%. It's really been in this 2 to 2.5% for months. So we don't see that shifting too much at this point. Now, again, something to keep an eye on. So this chart shows the ADR growth minus the consumer price percent index. So it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up. So we're kind of in uncharted territory where you can see currently it's at about 0%. It's not really up or down. So again, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Now here it is all rolled together. This is your RevPAR growth. This is the green bars show RevPAR growth on a monthly basis. And so again, it's kind of all over the place. You have some really high growth, you have lower growth. There was 1 month of decline in 2018 that occurred in September. That was a negative 0.3% RevPAR drop. So a big part of that actually had to do with Houston. Houston that month had a 37% RevPAR decline as a result of Hurricane Harvey, which had unprecedented hurricane impact. But if you took out Houston, it would have been a 0.4% RevPAR increase. So what I want you to focus on this chart is actually the red line. So this is a trailing 12-month standard. So you can see that it's up and it's a more consistent line, but it is starting to trend down. So again, positive growth, but it is having a downtrend line now. Now here are all of the cycles, just for your reference. So as you can see, we're at 107 months positive, which is 9 years. The last time this happened was in the 1990s, so we're getting close to that old previous peak. From here, I wanted to highlight the differences between the two long expansion cycles. So in the 1991 expansion cycle, we had much higher supply growth at 2.4%. Demand was above it at 2.6%, so that it wasn't driving the occupancy that we were seeing today. However, ADR had much higher growth in 1991. So here we have high occupancy and still ADR growth for an overall higher RevPAR growth in this cycle than the previous long cycle. So for total U.S., this is what's in construction, because we're talking about supply, and a lot of markets here, and you guys will later, about supply, but we still aren't at the peak of supply what it used to be, and the number of rooms in construction, again, if you're focusing on this red line, is starting to trend down. So what is in supply? So this is a metric of all of the rooms currently in construction. 72% of all of the rooms in construction are in the limited service category. And on top of that, of all of the rooms under construction, 58% of them are actually Hilton and Marriott products.
Wow.
So I wanted to end on some positive economic indicators for the total U.S. overview, because again, it's all positive, but there's things to keep in mind. There is still low unemployment, which is good for people spending money. It might not be good news for the hotel operators trying to hire people, but it's good news for people spending money. The GDP growth is in excess of 3%. If you want to ignore all the other indicators, this is the one you want to focus on. There's a direct correlation between GDP growth and RevPAR growth. So if you're wondering what is going to be going on with the total U.S. RevPAR growth, focus on GDP growth. Consumer spending is still up, and manufacturing is on the rise. All positive things. Now, as we get into the entire state of Florida, it's similar to the U.S., where it's beating records in terms of RevPAR and ADR. Where it is different, this is year-end 2018, is it actually showed a decline in occupancy. This is as a result of hurricane impact. Peak occupancy did occur in 2017 for the state of Florida. I have something coming up that will explain it. But first, I just wanted to do a few high-level points of Florida in general. So of the top 25 markets we track, there's 3 Florida ones, Miami, Orlando, and Tampa. Miami had the second highest RevPAR growth of 2018 at 6.3%. The only market that did a higher RevPAR growth was Minneapolis, and that was a result of the Super Bowl. And on the flip side, Tampa unfortunately had one of the lowest RevPAR percent gains at 0.7%. Now for Little Waves, I'm calling it Little Waves because it's all of the markets. There's 165 markets that STR tracks. The Florida Panhandle had a 10.6 RevPAR percent growth, so higher than Miami, and that was 6 out of 165 markets. On the other side, the Sarasota Bradenton had the second worst RevPAR of 165 markets at negative 5.5%. So I wanted to show you the impact of hurricanes to the entire state, which is no surprise to you. So this map on here is Florida broken up into the counties. So October 2017, this shows the demand percent change, is 1 month after Irma hit. It's all dark green for demand, 15%. This stayed dark green until about January 2018. Now we're looking at the map 1 year later, October 2018. It's offsetting all that demand it got from the hurricane, and now it's red. And granted, in October, I know Hurricane Michael came through. That is why on the top you see green. That's where it came through. Most of the displacement, though, happened in southern Alabama. So unfortunately, it didn't offset into the Gulf side here of Florida. So if it's not hurricanes, we already talked about it in other presentations, is it the red tide? So as you can see, this really started in June of 2018. Very long cycle. You're all very, very well aware of it through November 2018. Here's January 2019. The biggest thing I want to show you is this is the same map, but of August 2018. So August is not a hurricane-impacted month, but yet you see along the same way where the red tide was, you still have these red demand indicators, which tell us that the red tide had a significant impact to the demand in this area. Now a glimpse into Florida. For year-to-date February, occupancy is still slightly down, which is no surprise because, like I said, it was dark green until about January 2018, so it makes sense that January 2019 was therefore down. A little bump in ADR for a slight RevPAR growth of 0.5% year-to-date February. Okay, let's go to Lee County. Here is year-end 2018 for Lee County. So similar to Florida, there was a decline in occupancy as a result of the hurricane. ADR was up 3.8%, and I wanted to highlight this because this is very impressive. This is a good ADR boost, especially because the total U.S. was only at a 2.4% ADR growth. So this is an impressive boost. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough to make RevPAR positive, but at negative 0.4%, it's still it's almost even at this point. Now, glimpsing into 2019, you already kind of saw these metrics, except this is the year-to-date performance instead of the monthly performance. So January, as you know, was a rough month. February from STR data was still negative, but not as negative here. So, but occupancy is still down, ADR slightly down for a decline in RevPAR. Now, this is the same graph you saw for total U.S. with the supply and demand. The biggest thing I want you to focus on here is the positive 8% of demand that occurred in 2018. So it makes sense that now 2019 is at this negative 5%. It's offsetting, and it's not even offsetting as far as the increase was. And then the supply here has really been around this like 1% range for the past few years. But again, we're going to get into the supply metric in a little bit. Now, again, occupancy is no surprise. We already talked about it, and then here's your rate. I'm really just kind of showing you these slides so you can see the trajectory of what's been happening over the past few years in a line graph format. So from here, I wanted to dive into each of the classes that are in Lee County, the different hotel classes, to see if something might be outperforming another or something's driving the market. But as you can see, in general, among all the classes, there's been declines in occupancies, but gains in ADR. What is interesting is there's only 2 classes that had a little bit of RevPAR gain because of their ADR gain. That's the upper mid-scale class and the economy scale class. What's interesting about the upper mid-scale class having RevPAR gain is it also is the segment with the most supply increase as well. So that the new supply is probably driving the ADR to be higher because they can charge higher rates. Now we're going to look into the transient versus group occupancy trends. As you can see, no surprise, 2017 transient got up to 54% because there was much higher demand. And then now we've stabilized back around this 51%. As far as group, really since 2015, it's been about a 16% group occupancy. I put in the trailing 12 months for reference. It's obviously not going to be a lot different than 2018 as it's 2 different months of data, but I just wanted you to take a look at it as Q1 is a pretty big season for Lee County. Now, if we're looking at rates, so group rates have been, between this 130, but what I really, again, want to highlight here is from 2017 to 2018, there's that $7 increase in rate, which explains that 3.8% increase in ADR, which is very impressive because even if you look the prior years, 2016 to 2017, no change, 2015 to 16, only a $4 change. So this was a really good bump, and on a trailing 12-month basis, it does seem like it's maintaining at this point. So now we're going to look at surrounding counties to Lee County just to see. Here's supply and demand. So most of the counties are performing on a similar basis in terms of demand, where it's minimal demand to a decline in demand. Supply, the biggest thing that pops out here is Sarasota with a big bump in supply. I looked into it just to see if a mega resort or something opened, but they only had 3 new properties open. It's just a smaller market, so on a percentage basis, it looks pretty massive. So similar to other results, occupancy has declined in all of the surrounding counties. So Lee County is not exempt. There's only 2 counties that had occupancy growth, Miami and Monroe. This occupancy growth was literally 0.2% and 0.1%, so barely any occupancy growth. And as you can see, most of the counties experienced ADR growth, which is great. So here's just it all rolled up for RevPAR growth for all of the counties, and it's in order from highest to lowest here. Now let's get into the pipeline. What is coming to Lee County? So we are going to do a who, what, when, where, not necessarily in that order, but for what is going on in Lee County. First of all, this is just a summary of what's going on for Lee County. So there's currently 2 properties in construction, 6 in final planning, and final planning means that construction will start within the next 12 months, and then 15 in planning. So when you guys have someone from STR present to you every year, when I was looking at last year's presentation, the total pipeline was 8 properties. Obviously now at 23, that's a significant difference. But don't worry, because just because they're in planning, in general, 40% of the properties in planning don't come to fruition. So that's the standard attrition for total U.S., not necessarily Lee County. What is coming? So upper mid-scale seems to be the primary segment that is coming to Lee County. So that's good news in the sense that that was the best performing class for 2018. And this is, again, assuming that everything is going to be built that I've showed you. And it's similar to the U.S. trend where most of it is primarily in the limited service segment. Where? So all of these yellow dots are the planned new hotel supply. So as you can see, it's spread all over Lee County. I did a little zoom box for downtown Fort Myers because there are 3 projected properties here. For reference, here's a view of it with the current hotel supply. So all the black dots are current hotels, and still the yellow dots are future. So some of them are in clusters where current hotels are, some of them aren't. But here you have for reference. When is this going to happen? So there's 1 hotel that's opening this year. There's 5 slated for 2020 and 14 for 2021, which is a lot. So in 2009, Lee County had the highest supply growth on record at 7%. If all 5 open in 2020, that's 5.9% supply increase. If all 14 open in 2021, that's an 11.9% supply increase, just for reference here.
Ouch.
But what I can tell you is the ones in 2021, all of them but 2 are in the planning phase. So again, that doesn't mean all of this is going to come to fruition. This is just what has been fed to us at this point. All right, who is coming? So the one property that's opening in 2019 is the Spring Hill Suites. There is the Autograph Collection coming October 2020 that's currently under construction. And then the Staybridge Suites and Fairfield Inn are both in final planning, and they're the next most recent at this point to open. And as I said earlier, 75% of this list here is Marriott product. So it's similar trending with the U.S. that branded products are the ones that are seeming to be built at this point. Now let's get into the forecast. This is just things we focus on in STR for important calendar shifts. Really the ones that might impact you are Florida and then, or the Hurricane Michael in Florida, and Easter, since Q1 is such an important quarter for Lee County. So for the total United States, for the first time in this cycle, we're actually forecasting a 0% occupancy growth. This is not necessarily bad news because we're still saying we're at peak occupancy. We're not saying there's going to be a decline, but we just think that it's hit its top. ADR growth is slowing a little bit. Last year ended at 2.4%. This year we're saying a 2.3%, so we still believe that there's room for rate to grow in this cycle. So I wanted to show you this before I showed you your Lee County forecast. And I wanted to show you this because it highlights your seasonality. So no surprise, your seasonality is really in this Q1 segment. You can see by the dark green. So this shows it at the top of the screen, 1998, all the way through 2019. So the dark green in this shows your seasonality. The other thing I kind of wanted to highlight here, though, too, is if you look at the Q4 segment, that's really picked up traction in terms of seasonality for Lee County, which is great. So because of that, here is your forecast. So as we were showing, year-to-date February was negative results. March, the daily data appeared negative, but it's not finalized yet. And so that is impacting the rest of the year. So we're showing a little bump in occupancy because we think that it's going to pick up, especially with the double-digit declines that happened last year. ADR, we have negative for Q1. We actually have mostly positive forecasts for the remainder of the year, but because of missing Q1, it is a slight decline. And so we're forecasting RevPAR to stay pretty much even with a 0.1% RevPAR growth. Do you have any questions for me? That was a lot at you.
Thank you for that patient. Great job. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So when I look at the STAR report and where we are year to date for Lee County, and I think about my business and how I interpret it, I expected that through the first quarter, I may see a little bit of a dip in occupancy and overall RevPAR, because primarily we benefited through the first quarter of last year because all the Caribbean hotels were offline. We started to get some of that business that may have been going down there. So this year, we anticipated that there'd be a slight drop. When I look at the bed tax collections, though, and we're down in the month of February in Lee County in RevPAR by 3.7%, but bed tax is up. That tells me that there's significant more room nights coming into the marketplace going into probably vacation rentals, home rentals, right? Which is a little concerning as a hotelier, that the market is overall up in bed tax collections, yet all the hotels are down. How do you look at that in the forecasting for the future for Lee County in particular, because it seems to be a bigger and growing market for us here? How do you account for that through the forecasting model that you guys do?
So when it comes to Airbnb stuff, at this point, we haven't had enough of a history, and specifically Lee County, of this increase to factor into it. So at this point, that has not been factored into the forecast.
Okay, so there's risk there because of that.
There could be, potentially.
Do you know, Tam, at what percentage of the bed tax collection comes from that versus hotels?
I do not. We have that real estate line in the collection, and it is about 20% of collections that come in under the real estate line. So it's a significant portion of bed tax, but there are also vacation rentals that fall into each of the municipal categories depending on how they're paid. So if they're individually paid, they're being noted by which market they're from. It's the more collective collections that are under that real estate. So I've had this conversation with the clerk of courts. Can you give me a better idea what portion of this is the vacation rentals versus, and they feel like they cannot. So I'm sharing with you, we think the same way in that sense, what's going on here. I think it's also important to understand that we do still have a lot of independent hotels, some of which do participate in STAR and some of which do not. And I think that also plays a factor in it. When I look at the hotels that they are able to collect data from, as Emmy and I discussed, they have about 80% of the hotels in Lee County, but the ones they miss are primarily coastal. So that also has a factor on, there may be higher RevPAR collections at the coastal properties than some of the inland properties. So, you got to take all these data points, right, and make some collective decisions from them.
It would be great if we would be able to see a trend line where the
Yeah.
collections are coming from the vacation rentals to see how
Yeah.
that's increasing versus.
Well, and I tell you what we'll do is we'll sketch that out from at least the data we have, what's falling under real estate and how much has that changed over the last 5 years. So when we come to TDC next month, we'll sketch that out and see what we have. But I wish I had it the way you're talking about. There are some data sources out there that do vacation rental. They do it by kind of scraping data. And I've had several conversations with them. It's certainly a data source we could look at buying into. There are a few things about it I don't like. Any kind of scraping is not perfect, data scraping, but at the end of the day, it might be something that's worth us looking into. But, you've got people around the table that know a little bit about vacation rentals. I know Tony's in that business, so, they may be able to speak to it a little bit better. Is it up, compared to the hotel?
New for us still yet.
Yeah.
We haven't had a year under our belt yet, so we'll let you know.
Okay.
I have a question, maybe I don't know if Emma can answer, or somebody here, the hotelers. So when you show the numbers for projection of hotel rooms for 2021, the 11% increase, and Tam about had a heart attack here, stopped breathing for a second. Those hotelers, though, those companies, they're obviously marketing, they're doing their own market analysis, so before they build in the area, I'm sure they're doing an analysis based upon needs. So do they see a need? Is that why they're building their rooms 2-3 years out from here? Is that why they see the projections for the county and they see the growth and is that why they based upon to build these 1,900 room hotels? Anybody, the hotelers, Emma knows how they do that?
It's a timing standpoint.
Right.
They're trying to get them built because they see the numbers of the growth and get them built at those numbers. And what ends up happening is they get delayed in either in construction or permitting. And now you see a kind of a clog happening, and now the numbers, you're seeing demand go down, and these guys are still going to build.
Right.
And it ends up pulling from some of the other hotels, the older ones. So it's
kind of an evolution, right?
It's the hotelier mentality,
right.
And you can see some of the projects are behind the curve right now.
I can just tell you from observation, when you see that average annual occupancy hit that 70% mark, we hear more and more about hotel construction. 70% seems to be that if you can have an annualized occupancy in the 70s, that becomes the sweet spot for hotel development.
That's what I usually see is the absorption rate starts after 70% occupancy, but usually too, from what I've seen in the past, those 14 hotels, you'd be lucky if half of them end up coming.
Right.
And then for the county perspective, we don't have, and most of you all know that people that start building a hotel, we have no control. It's already zoned for that or permitted for that. So hotel starts being built, we're like, what's going up here? And sure enough, it's another hotel or whatever it may be, because we don't, control that private market. So constituents always ask us why they're building here, where they're building here, and we don't have any control of that because it's already zoned for those, especially the inland hotels. So.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to always look at. I thought your presentation was excellent, and thank you for that seasonal slide, because I don't think we had that last year, and I think that's such an important slide to be showing to those that don't understand the hotel market. I'm seeing some of the ones that were supposed to be opening in 2020 and even 2019, they're not even breaking ground. So it's going to be really interesting. I think you'll see a little bit higher number of those that are on the slate not even breaking ground, because we do have to look at the economic outlook for the future. And I really like the slide that you had to see where those are. You know, it's very thoughtful where those are. You have smart people who are building these hotels. It's a long process, not a short process.
Just to point on what you said about being zoned, I mean, you look at the vacation rentals, those homes are not zoned for vacation rental on Fort Myers Beach or on Sanibel Island. And then you have a homeowner that lives right next to now a vacation rental. I mean, that's an issue. And then it's going to be an issue when these hotels aren't putting jobs in the area. Right.
This is a huge issue, and you know,
it's a municipality issue.
Unfortunately, it could not be. I don't know if you all are aware what happened yesterday. The House passed its third committee, so it did approve the vacation rental bill that was going through. However, the Senate did not hear it, so it is going to be very difficult for that vacation rental bill to go through at this point. You know, you can't say it's dead, but it's almost dead. But this will come back next year, and this vacation rental issue is a huge issue, and I think, Brian, you're straight on. We don't know the numbers, and a lot of the Airbnbs, they don't want you to know the numbers. So it's really hard to track those when they're trying to make sure that we don't have the ability locally to be able to regulate and watch what we have in that pipeline, which is exactly what they're trying to do.
And just on that note, if anybody's not aware, Airbnb, yeah, they report tax, they pay tax, but you have an audit number that you have to report tax. They can decide what they want to pay.
They don't have to.
There's no auditing. So,
well,
I think bad month in Airbnb, we'll just pay less in tax.
I think just having a ballpark idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably
I think it's a good
from the
conversation.
report the tax collection dollars of what that comes to, and then know what percentage out there could be from that other market.
I want you to know I actually had a conversation about that data source this morning, so it is on our mind. So
it's on all of our minds.
Okay.
And why can't we get better data? Is it the clerk of courts? Is it that much work for him to delve into it, or is this just something they don't want to do? Or?
It's actually a Florida statute.
Okay.
And some agreements with Airbnb.
Oh, interesting.
There's no auditing. They can report whatever they want.
Worse. Very bad.
I think as tourism development and as hoteliers looking out for hotels, it's important to know how much that market is growing in your marketplace versus how much hotels are growing in that marketplace. That's important in decisions that we make around this table.
I know.
About that information.
I do too.
It's tough.
Any other questions for Emma? Great presentation. Thank you for the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, Emmy.
Now, you're going to stay. If you need a note or something for Colorado, we'll just tell them you can get a flight back for a few days or something. You want to stay a little bit longer? Okay, good.
Might as well, right?
Okay, we'll go on for council information. Cam, you want to start? Do you have anything for us? No. Councilwoman?
No, I would just going to reiterate that Senate Bill 824, which was the vacation rental, was not heard. It was postponed in Senate committee. It's going to be quite tight for that to go through. I think it was a real message that the Senate sent. However, on the House side, Bill 987, that same vacation rental bill, that this is basically the third year that this has come up, did see its way through all committees. There were 3 amendments that were included. It did not include allowing those municipalities like the city of Sanibel to maintain their preemption, to maintain our grandfathered status of our zoning requirements. However, it did have an amendment to include homeowners association and condos. Again, it did go through the third committee. There is no Senate companion bill right now. So be ready, because this will continue for next year, and we all really need to stay in touch with this and understand what could be happening. And we just want to say, keep it at the local level. Let us decide at our local level what is best for our communities in regards to our zoning of these vacation rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carriosha?
I'm good.
Good? Right.
We skipped a meeting at the airport, so I don't have an update for you, but when we get them, I'll send them to you. And the other thing for Fort Myers Beach is it does look like the offshore races are coming in October, so that'll give us 4 days of good.
I love that.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn, do you have anything?
No, sir.
No. Tam, do you have anything else?
Just a bit of an update. I've been sending you the FADMO reports on the legislative efforts, which includes obviously the vacation rental issue. We are still not getting any movement on the reauthorization of Visit Florida in the House. As you're reading in those reports, it is likely that will be a conference committee issue and hashed out in the last few days. But I think it's important that if this is an issue that is important to you, that you are expressing yourself to your elected officials in Tallahassee.
Great, thank you. I just want to make a couple announcements. This past week we had the grand opening of the Dave & Buster's Bell Tower. Colleen, the chamber is there kicking that off, so we're excited. It's a new entertainment, new adventure for Lee County, and it's been a great project. That's been in the works for like 3 years now. We've been working with the Bell Tower management to get that there. Some diversity in our entertainment, something different here in Fort Myers a little bit. So we're looking forward to that. And also today, myself and Councilwoman Gill Anthony is having a town hall meeting from 4 to 6 today. We'll be talking about different things in the county and the city of Fort Myers, what's going on, the good news. And also I just want to say thank you to all the staff. As Stephanie said earlier, I attended with staff the ITB last month in Germany. And let me tell you something, I know you're involved here and you know what's going on, but people on the outside, they do not realize how hard our staff works. Those girls are just really working it over there. And we see the travel schedule for the last 3 months, what they're doing, and our staff. So hats off to Tam and all the staff, Stephanie, and all the girls for everything they're doing for this council, because they're really working hard for all of us. So thank you. Colleen?
Just a quick reminder, thank you to those of you who nominated somebody for Chrysalis. We are now, we're about to start judging for that, and then it's time now to register to attend. It's on June 14th. I had a moment. June 14th at the Sanibel Harbor, so we'd love to have you guys come out. Trade show tables are booking very strongly, so we do presume that we'll sell all 40 of those that are available. So if you want to get one of those in, you don't have to be a chamber member. We just ask that you come and support the Chrysalis Awards.
What was that date again?
June 14th, it's a Friday, and it's the 10th annual, so we're bringing back some past recipients. It should be a very special event.
Bill?
All good, thank you.
I have a luncheon that you don't want to miss. It's the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association's Lee Chapter. We're doing the Lee Chapter Educational Luncheon, showcasing our hospitality students, who I believe are actually preparing a lunch for us, along with our career and technical education programs such as building construction, finance, information technology, transportation, marketing, and more. Learn how our high schools are training our students to be our future employees. It's going to be at the Lee County Public Education Center on Colonial Boulevard here in Fort Myers. It is on Thursday, April 25th at 12 noon. So come on out and see the students and how the high schools are taking care of them.
Great, thank you.
Nothing for me. Thanks.
Johnny?
About to give birth to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Signed the papers, I remember, with the architect in July 7, 1717. So now we're thinking right around 15th of May is right after Mother's Day. We'll have a kind of a soft opening. We'll invite certainly all the staff here to come out and see not just the kitchen, but we redid the old Captiva houses.
Well, congratulations on that, and thank you. Tony had to go through all kinds of nightmares for the last year or two working with the fire department, the county.
Yeah.
So, again, thank you for doing business in Lee County, because they put you through the test of...
Getting there.
Yeah, but it's going to be beautiful, and again, the pool project turned out nice, everything, so we'll look forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, do you have anything? Andrew, do you have anything? I want to say, I mentioned today that town hall that me and Gail Anthony's doing at the, we're probably, I think probably expecting 500 to 800 people there. We actually got the church on 6 Mile Cypress. The last time we did a smaller one, it was probably 500 people. So we also have the airport staff come and do a presentation about the expansion of the airport. I think Jeff's flights got delayed, so I think other staff's going to be there to do that, though. And also in the city, that the project, the Topgolf, is coming too. We're going to have people there from Topgolf talking about that new facility.
One more thing, I want to thank for the Captiva Historical Society and Tam coming out. They had a great presentation on the history of lodging. It was really nice, and thanks for your support. We appreciate it.
Great.
Fran?
I was just going to question when you talk about the bell tower, do you see the whole bell tower changing kind of maybe now since?
Yeah, it's been going through some transitions like the last 4 years, and I know we have an event there actually this Saturday morning. I know they're doing a thing with puppies and dogs, and we're kicking a little kickoff and grand opening for the completion of the renovations for Bell Tower. And I know some changes. There were some of their leases being moved out and moving out, and they're not really sure what's going to happen. I think it's good though. I mean, as far as I think, I'm looking forward to see what transition they do there. We don't have any control of it. We're just, sit back, watch, and hopefully, as a resident that uses that facility a lot, hopefully they'll do something good there. So,
okay,
yeah. Anything else? I'm trying to kick Pam. Pam's actually leaving in a few minutes to go to D.C. for a meeting, so we're trying to wrap up real quick. So she's got to get to the airport in a minute.
Like now?
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll be adjourned.